We are women who understand we are trying to juggle both the dream and the passion, this thing that we love doing, that we want to scale. We want it to be wildly profitable, but not at the expense of everything else. Welcome to the Balancing Busy podcast. I am so excited for today because you guys get to meet someone who I love so much. We have been together almost from the beginning of my business, where I've actually gotten to help her in like more than one business, which is the coolest thing. So Nadine, thank you for being here. Will you just start by telling everybody just a little bit about yourself, your business, like who you are, those things?
Hello, I am Nadine Medina, and yes, it's true. We've been working together for the better part of 13 years, I think, right?
That's crazy.
Yes. And yeah, it started with a photography business back then, that I needed help with, and it was an amazing experience to work with you through that. And in the last year, I started working on a new business that involves knitting for beginners and teaching busy moms to use knitting as a stress relief tool, self-care exercise. And yeah, it's been wonderful to have you in my corner again. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
It has been amazing. It's been so fun. Okay, just really curious. Have you always knit, or like how did you come across knitting?
Actually, I have knitted since I was 14 or so. I
Okay,
don't remember
okay,
exactly, but my grandma in Germany, I grew up in Germany, and she taught me how to knit and to crochet. I always like knitting better. I can do
okay.
both. Um, and then I did it into like my 20s, and I don't even remember when or why I stopped. Um, but interestingly, I forgot that I knew it. Like literally forgot that I knew it. And I tell this story all the time because it was not until the pandemic happened and everybody was like, we're so stressed. What are we going to do? That I was like, oh, I remember this. I remember knitting, and let me try that out because I have all the time here at home and I don't know what to do. So, which I did know what to do, but everybody wanted to fill their time with something that is a bit more intentional and mindful.
Yeah.
And yeah, I picked it up again, and I have loved it ever since, and kind of took it a little bit further now with this whole, this is my self-care, like must have. And turned out I love teaching it to others. So
I love that. I just love that you found something that had brought you joy, even as a child, and then you'd kind of forgotten about. And now you're turning it into this business, which is so amazing, getting to combine both entrepreneurship with this thing that you love and that you know can really help others because, as busy moms and we're like wanting to have that stress reliever. And so, for any who are that creative, crafty, they like doing things with their hands, they like making something, here's this beautiful opportunity for them. And they can learn from you, which is so cool. I love it.
yeah,
Okay.
I mean, it's been a lot of fun for me too. I always do run into kind of like this, and this is where you come in, and your mission is me. I love what I do and I love the craft, and I knit every day for my personal joy, and but then I also do it as a business. And there's this fine line of taking it too far, right? And making this passion of yours this like must do, like I
Yes.
have to. And that's where, what you teach really kind of came in handy for me, where it's like, okay, let's not take it too far over this way because I still want to love it. And I
Oh,
remember that same experience with photography where I was like, stop asking me to take personal pictures of the kids. Like I'm done for today. I've already worked. So that's
yes.
where I want to draw the line and kind of make boundaries. So
Well, it's that line where passion becomes obsession and then it takes over everything, right? And it is so fun to love what we do. Like I really do love working. If no one's home, which is now happening more and more now that less people are in the house because they all keep, heading off to college. And so it's like I'm having more and more nights where everybody's gone and people are like, "Oh my gosh, what are you going to do?" And if no one's home, I'm going to work because it is my favorite thing. Like I love
yes.
it. But I've learned to be very intentional and not let it accidentally take over all the things. And obviously that's such a huge part of what Mom Business Academy is about, right? Because within Mom Business Academy, like, okay, we are women who understand we are trying to juggle both the dream and the passion, this thing that we love doing, that we want to scale. We want it to be wildly profitable, but not at the expense of everything else. So what got you to join Mom Business Academy?
Actually, I think well, we took a little break, me and you,
Yeah,
right? For a
yeah.
couple years. We were in touch, but I was not necessarily in your realm of business. And I
Right. Well,
came
you
back
went a
to
totally
you.
different world,
I
right?
did.
Like, yeah.
I
And
did.
I shifted too, because so just so everybody knows, my first course was the Thriving Photographer. And this is back when Nadine was a photographer. So she joined that course and then killed it. I mean, like, absolutely. She is your dream student, where she takes everything you say and she does it. And so she did the things and her business exploded, like absolutely insane. So we got to work together there, but then you ended up being like, okay, I'm ready to leave photography and go into something else. And I was also ready, like, I'm going to stop teaching photography and I'm going to start teaching other kinds of entrepreneurs. And so, yeah, so then there was this
Yep.
space,
And then
and then we
And then
found each other again.
it intersected again when I don't even exactly remember how I came back across it, but I do remember your shift when you started talking to moms who are in business, but who also need help with, balance. And I was like, wait a minute, I remember that. Let me just check that out. And I started listening to your podcast, and then I came across, and I don't remember the title of it, but it was a Chat GPT class, and you taught it
Yeah.
last fall.
Yep.
So 2023
The
in the fall.
ChatGPT Accelerator. Yep. Okay.
Accelerator. That's
Okay.
the one. And I was like, ooh, I need that because I had just started dabbling and I didn't know what I was doing at all. So that's kind of how I just jumped back in there. And funny side note, my husband actually did the thing with me because he was starting to use it as well. And we were both like, oh my God, this is amazing. And he
Yay.
remembered you and all, and like it was so fun. He's like, oh, of course I remember Leah. And so
It's amazing.
we were like, we used all the prompts, and that class was amazing. Like, and I think I remember telling you too that it would really help me, and I don't think I would be using it the way I am now and this efficiently if it weren't for that course. And then shortly after, I believe there was like a special or something to join your academy. And I was like, well, let me try that out because this worked 10 years ago. And you're right. I did all the things. Like I was like, okay, she knows exactly what she's talking about. So I'm going to do all the things and the step by step. And I did. And it was a lot. It was a whole lot, but it all like it fell into place and it really did blow up my business and it worked so well. And it was so fun to do as well because you focus on customer experience, and I always thought that was like such a great piece of it because it gets overlooked often, and I
Hmm.
feel like it
Hmm.
probably gets overlooked even more now in the online space.
Yeah.
um but yeah, that's kind of how I jumped back in, and I was really intrigued by the way you streamline things, and it transcends just the business side because you do home life too, and that's where I needed help as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how that started.
Okay, so I'm a little bit curious, and you might not remember, but just so people understand as they're hearing this, Mom Business Academy it's I'm trying to think of the right word. It's substantial. Okay, we'll say that. It is substantial. So there's 4 tracks within Mom Business Academy. And there's each track covers what I believe are like the pillars of a great business. So having more time, because none of us, like, we all want more time, right? Having more money, having more reach, and then having more visibility. And when we have those pieces dialed in, then it's like, okay, everything falls into place. And so there's like this slew of trainings, and it's kind of buffet style where it's like you can think about what you need in your business, and then you can go watch that training, implement my exact systems, my frameworks, my scripts, my checklists, everything, right? So there's everything from productivity, organization, setting up systems, to learning money confidence, to setting up your email marketing, better blogging for those who have blogs, creating a year-long marketing, how to get testimonials and referrals and create that incredible customer journey with the raving fans, and right, like there's all the things. So do you by chance even remember what it was that like drew you into it? Like which thing it was? Like what was the pain point you were feeling that you're like, okay, yeah, maybe this could help?
I think my biggest pain point was so first of all, I was starting a podcast at the time.
That's
It was,
right.
yeah.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
and I messaged you and I said, okay, is that part of it? Like, can I, because I have an idea, but I'm not quite sure how to like, do all of that and keep it going. So that was a resounding yes. And that's
And it is
mainly,
like I said,
that was
this.
like my last little hurdle because I was like, okay, everything else is going to be just fine, but I do need that piece too. So I need to make sure that that's part of it. So yes, that's definitely in there. And that was a big part for me. But the other thing that also drew me in was this like just setting your foundations. And for the most part, I know how to do this, but things are changing all the time. And I'm a business owner. I run a business. I don't have time to do all the back end research and stuff. I
Right.
need a coach for that. And that's where that came in. And I really enjoyed that foundational module where you just
Yeah.
go through, your branding and making sure you have like all the pieces in place. And that was very helpful to me to just have it laid out step by step. Um, and yeah, I think those were the two main things that I came for.
You know
I
what
also
is
like the accountability, by the way, which I
yeah.
always need that.
Yes. Okay. You know what is my favorite part about that is the two things you mentioned I didn't even say. So
That's right.
I'm like, right? Like I'm like giving everybody like, hey, here's what it is. And then the two things you say, I'm like, that's hilarious. I
That's
didn't
in
even
there
mention
too.
those. So yeah, that's in there too. So the very first thing says start here and it's the foundations. And it helps you just check and make sure like you have the foundations in place so that you're not throwing spaghetti at the wall and it's not sticking because you don't have your foundations right. And then yeah, I didn't even mention the podcast, but there is a ton on podcasting in there. Like so I had started my podcast maybe a year before like you joined, and I hired a coach. Like I knew a lot, but I'm like, I don't want to guess and get it wrong. I don't have time for that. So I want somebody to show
Exactly.
me. And I that was a huge investment for me. And then I was like, will you come in and teach a private training inside the membership? And she did. So then you have like my version of here's how I do all my systems for it. And then her version of like, here's how you actually need to think about building one. And so,
Yes.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I totally,
It was
that's so
perfect. Yeah.
funny. That's so funny. Okay. I love it. All right. So I'm so curious. What do you feel like have been like mindset shifts or aha moments for you with Mom Business Academy?
Um, Let me think about this one. So though before I forget this may not be exactly what you're asking right now, but I do have to
That's
say this.
okay.
So here, look, if you can look behind me, and I don't know, people who are listening won't be able to see that, but can you see it? Yes.
That makes me so
So
happy.
that is the 2025 over the big gigantic planner
The
that
giant
you do,
marketing calendar.
that we have in there. And I have just started the the marketing plan training in there. So to be perfectly honest, I have not done all the trainings yet. It's
But
only
you
been a
shouldn't.
year.
Because you probably don't
I'm
need
like,
them all.
wow,
You
there's
know what
so
I mean?
much in there. And that's
Yeah.
where it's nice. You can just go and pick what you need in the moment. But I remembered that you had a similar marketing overview training back in the Thriving Photographer, and it
Yes.
helped so much. I laid out back then I had a blog. I laid out all my blog posts. I did all my promotions, my fall mini sessions, my spring mini sessions, like everything was kind of like, okay, I can handle that. And I don't have that right now because I'm still working on my offers. And, this thing is, I'm building my audience right now with the podcast. So I'm not quite there yet, but I know in 2025, I want to make, plans, and I want to do big things, and I want to make sure that they're all laid out. So that is extremely helpful. I just started that one and I'm really excited to fill this thing in. Just wanted to, before I forget, I just wanted to say that
Oh,
because
no,
I'm
that made
so
me
excited
so
about that one.
happy. That's like, I can't even tell you. I get giddy every time I see any of you having like your giant marketing calendar. And it's
Yeah.
like, they're like we get on our group coaching calls. And if I see one in the background, I'm like, yeah, right? Like, it's just so
And
exciting.
it was the funniest thing. I made a reel yesterday right here in my office, and it was in there, and I was like, I have to tag you so you can see it.
That's so amazing. Oh my gosh.
It's
I
like right
love
there.
it. I love it. So yeah, so I feel like a lot of times with marketing, it's kind of feast or famine, right? We're like, oh my gosh, I need clients. And then we try to market a bunch and then you're too busy. So then you pull back. But then because you haven't been consistent, all of a sudden they all drop off. Now you have no, right? And it goes back and forth. So this idea of like being able to build out marketing for a whole year at once and then being able to see it so you don't accidentally overwhelm yourself. Because I've made that mistake where I put way too many fun ideas into way too short of a period of time. And then I'm drowning in all of it, right? So it just really helps to create, like organize it, create a system for it. And then you get to see it all in the big calendar, which is so fun that you have yours there.
Exactly. And for me also to and this might be, I think we might match up personality wise over here because I can always relate to the way you speak about these things. But for me, it's like, oh, I want to do this big thing and I have this great idea and it's like all these things, but I forget that it takes like a month to plan or,
Yes.
like there's deliverables that need to be created and whatever else, goes in there. And I'm like, oh, yeah, forgot about that. So
Right.
see it on the plan, I can then, reverse engineer that and
Yes.
that's going to be extremely helpful for me. So that's creatives, right? We
Oh yeah. Oh
we
my gosh.
tend to kind of go overboard here and but it's funny how we reel each other back in, I feel like.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much. And it is so true. So, okay, one thing I want to ask you about is as creative, as entrepreneurs, it can be really hard to find the time to invest in educating ourselves. And you've always been brilliant at it. Like you truly, like you, Nadine, are a star student, okay? Like you are just, because you do, like you make the things happen. So tell me how you do that. Like how are you scheduling, because we've all bought courses that we're kicking ourselves and we didn't use, or we hear about something like this
Yeah,
and we
I've
think
done
that
that.
sounds amazing, but like, I don't know if I'm going to use it, right? Like, I don't know. So how do you do that?
Well, I have to be honest, I have had courses that just kind of like, died on the shelf. It has happened for sure. But I don't know, I just get really excited when I do invest in something that I know will hopefully bring my business forward. And if anything, it'll just, educate me more and kind of expand my horizon. But I try to just break it up. And often, I'll be honest with you, that foundation piece. And also there was a whole, oh gosh, I can't even remember, but it's in the home module where you
Uh-huh.
talk about organizing your home and then the meal delivery and like all these things.
Yeah. And the laundry
And
schedule and the like, yeah.
like
Yes.
all the little like where you feel like, wow, this is really silly, but I need all of that. Like it needs to be organized, it needs to be systemized, and that helped me so much. And I feel like I have a lot of them in place, but it's always so great to hear different angles of it. So I
Yeah.
listened to that whole
Yeah.
module again, and I did it while I was cleaning my house. So that's something, right?
I love
I
that.
often listen when I walk my dog or when I just take a walk, when I drive in the car. So I do listen, and then I go back and I kind of like, like take notes or kind of figure out a way to implement it. So it's not always I'm looking at the screen and I've got my notepad. Definitely not that kind of student over
Yes.
here.
Okay.
So
I'm actually so glad you brought that up because something that no one, well, not no one, there's about 1,000 people who know, but you are one of the few who knows that the Thriving Photographer was an audio program. It was
yes, oh
not,
gosh, that's
it
right.
was not video. Remember? And like that was very, I mean, first of all, when I created the Thriving Photographer, people have to understand courses didn't exist yet. Like I'm
Oh,
literally sitting there like,
yeah.
how do I get all this information out there? Because it wasn't what it is today. That was like 15 years ago, I think.
I had it literally in Apple Podcasts or no, what?
Yes.
No, not even. It was
Podcast didn't
iTunes
exist yet.
or
It was in
whatever.
iTunes or
iTunes, that's
iMusic. I don't
yes,
even.
right, whatever that was called at the time.
Yeah.
I
Podcast
loaded
didn't
the
exist
file
yet.
in there. I had it on a disc, Leah. I had it burnt on a disc.
Did you
Like,
really?
I still have the thing. Yes.
Oh my gosh,
I
that's
still
so
have
epic.
it.
I remember
Oh,
I had
yes.
instructions with it on how you got it into your like music player.
Mm-hmm.
So that you could listen to it. And then I remember members would laugh and they would tell me that like their music was on shuffle, right? And so they'd be listening to songs and then all of a sudden
Yeah.
Leah would show up and be like, let's talk about your pricing. In this module,
It happened. It absolutely happened. I just remembered now, but yes, that was so funny. Oh my gosh. Yep, it was totally in my library too. It might still be there somewhere.
that is,
But I had like my binder and the disc was in the front, so I had all of that. Yeah, And
Oh my
I
gosh.
completely forgot it was an audio program until you just mentioned that. But
Yeah.
I
Well,
listened
when you
to
said
that one
that,
in the
when you were
car.
like,
Yeah.
I listen while I'm driving, I listen while I'm on a walk. Okay, so I want to ask you because this is something I've been playing with. So for those who don't know, we have group coaching calls every month and people can submit questions and sometimes I go rogue and I do like a whole training. Like a couple months ago, I was like, we're breaking down launches. We're breaking down value ladders. Like, let me show you exactly what this looks like, right? So they kind of alternate. So I've been playing with the idea of making a private podcast just for Mom Business Academy members and then putting all the coaching calls into the podcast so everyone could just listen to them everywhere. So I feel like you're going to tell me, yes, I should do that. And that
Yes, I'm
seems like,
already nodding because I so first of all, I love podcasts, and this the main reason is because I don't sit in my office and look at a screen and watch a video. I will,
right.
yeah, but it's not the majority of times. And
And I'm the
I
same
will
way.
listen, yeah, I will listen to a video because I don't necessarily always need to see the person. I just need the information. So for me, anything that's just audio is perfect. And I think that's why podcasts are so fun and they work so well because people are
Yeah.
really dialed in.
Yeah.
Honestly, honestly, even more so than when they look at the face, because there's something distracting about it when you watch
Yep.
something versus when you just listen to it. And that, at least that's how my brain works. So for me, that's a big yes. And I was in a coaching program in the last 4 years where the coach, she did that. So she did, I believe it was weekly coaching calls she did, and they were an hour long, and she answered questions, and you weren't always able to make it, so she put them in a private podcast, and you can listen to them whenever, and they were organized, and you can search for them, all that stuff, and it was fantastic. So
Yeah. Yep.
definitely a great idea.
Yeah. That's one of our 2025 steps is like, okay, we're going to take coaching calls and start putting them into a podcast. And so
Love
that's
it.
exciting. So as you're like saying all this,
Very.
it's just making me even more excited and remembering. And the whole idea came from because when I developed my first course, it's audio on purpose. Like I could have made videos, but I was thinking about me. And I'm like, I'm so busy. Like I don't have
Yeah.
time to sit and look at a video for an hour, but if I can listen while I'm cleaning the kitchen, I feel so powerhouse productive. Or if I'm like driving and I'm also like learning, I mean, it's amazing, right? And so that's why it was designed that way. And some of them, it's like I'm literally showing you how to implement something, so you're gonna need to pause and watch. But so much of it can be audio. So I love that you're utilizing that and you're like, oh no, I'm taking the dog for a walk, putting it in my pocket, and let's
Yeah.
go.
Maybe it's because I'm old school like that, and I used to do it because it was just audio anyway. But yeah, I love that. And sometimes I have to just go back and fill out the worksheet or whatever, the workbook, and the big plan over here behind me.
Yeah.
And then I'll just kind of skip through it a little bit because I already
Right.
listened to it. So
Right.
it
You're
makes
like
it a
you can
little
just
bit more
get to the
efficient
part that you
then.
need to implement and then go
Exactly.
back. Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so obviously Mom Business Academy is so much around balancing both business and the rest of our life. And I feel like you've already honestly kind of answered this where you've, said like I put in the things that you have around home with like meal prep and laundry and grocery and all that kind of stuff. What would you say to mom entrepreneurs who feel like balance is impossible?
I would say, so I heard this recently that balance may be misunderstood, the word balance, because it means like, oh, it has to be equal parts of this and equal parts of this to be balance. But I understand balance a little different, more in the sense of like being aligned maybe or in harmony, like
Yeah.
something, where
Yeah.
it's like that's kind of how it sounds to me when I hear the word balance, but I know that's not the case for everybody. So I want to kind of just say how I look at it. And that doesn't always mean, okay, I have to have equal amounts of work and equal amounts of, home stuff. Some
Right.
days I only do home stuff. And then other days, like yesterday, I spent my entire day in my office. And that doesn't happen very often, but I knocked out 3 days of work or
Yeah.
4 days of work. But Monday, I didn't go into my office at all. All I did was like a half an hour of like, going into my group and interacting in there, and the rest was was fine because I did it on a different day. So that's kind of how I see the balance and how I try to approach it, to where I can be present in both areas. But there's not the traditional sense of balance, if that makes sense. So it's
Oh,
always kind of like
100%.
a, yeah. And yeah, and it's never perfect. That's
Right.
always something that I want to mention because I held myself to a crazy standard for so long that was absolutely impossible to achieve. And just learning, and I'm still learning that, and I'm sure a lot of people relate to that because it's this ongoing process of this will never be perfect. It will never look like on a Instagram reel or in a Pinterest board. It is just messy. And being okay with messy and it not being perfect, I think is part of the process and part of the work. So that's kind of, yeah. And again, work in progress over here for sure with all of that. I have
I
days where
I
I
love that.
still hold myself to those standards and
We
get
all do.
frustrated. So, yeah.
We all do. I mean, hello, my entire podcast is called Balancing Busy, and I want everyone to know there are still days when I'm like, whoa, hot mess, not
Yeah.
feeling so balanced. I look at balance and I'm thinking, okay, balance can't be rigid. That's the opposite of balance, right? The more rigid we try to be, often the harder it is. Like, do yoga and try to be super rigid, right? It doesn't work.
Sure.
We need to be able to be flexible. I think the best way to think about balance is, number one, instead of thinking of it as a result, think of it as a feeling. Like, do you feel balanced? Not everything's equal. And then the second is, balance is a whole lot more like riding a bicycle than anything else. And to stay on a bicycle, you're constantly adjusting and moving. Like,
You're in motion all the time. Yeah.
yeah, the second you try to get
Definitely.
super rigid and hold still, boink, right? Like, we're
Yep.
falling over. So, yeah, I love that. I love that so much. Okay, final question for you. If someone listening is on the fence about joining Mom Business Academy, which, by the way, I'm going to just start out by saying, if you're already like, Leah, I'm not on the fence, I want to be a part of this. This sounds incredible. All you need to do is go to balancingbusy.com or leahremlay.com, or if you're on the email list, click reply to any email, and you can just let me know, and we'll set up a quick chat and make sure it's a great fit for you, because I want it to fit perfectly, and we will go from there. But for anyone sitting on the fence about joining Mom Business Academy, what would you say to them?
I would say to them that if they are a mom who is in business and who needs to make sure that she is juggling all the things in a way that makes her content and happy every day, where it's imperfect, but you have a plan, then you are absolutely going to want to join, because you're going to get like the four pillars you just mentioned, right? Like, what was it? Like more time, more visibility,
Yep, more money, more reach.
more
Yep.
money and more reach.
Yeah.
And the home piece that we just talked about that doesn't
Yeah.
even really, you don't
Right,
even
because
mention
that's
it
under
in
the
there.
time track. Because that's actually kind of like a
That's the more
sneaky
time.
bonus in the time track. But it like,
For me,
'cause
that
it's
was
like,
huge.
yeah, because it's like, well, how do we
Yeah.
balance all these things? Like, how do we make sure dinner shows up on the table when we all say like, oh, family dinner is so important, but I've been working
do we
all
do
day, and yeah, how do we do it? Right.
How do
So
we do
that
it?
yeah, so that's
Yeah.
under the no time track. Yeah.
And I honestly was, because it's about balancing your business and your personal life, I was really under the impression there was much less business coaching than there actually is, which I find amazing. And I want to just let people know, because you will literally get a business coach and a how do I make my crazy life house work coach together in one package. And I think that's just fantastic. Like, that was a bonus for me that I didn't even know I was going to get. Email marketing, I just listened to that whole module last week to kind of fine tune my email marketing. What was the other one that I just recently did? Oh, the marketing one that I'm talking about. Like, all those are things that I would expect from just a business coach, right? Where it's like, oh, we're just talking business. However you fit that into your life is on you. No, you're doing that, and then you tell me, okay, and that's how you actually make it happen in your busy life as a mom who owns a business. I mean, for me, who has always been a mom in a business, like since I've been a mom, I've always been in business. So this is a no-brainer for me to be able to have those two pieces to put together and achieve that, flexible balance that you teach. So I think it's, yeah, no-brainer, like I said.
Oh, thank you. You're amazing. Nadine, you are the best student. I adore you. It's so fun having you on the podcast, because we have so much history. We have gotten to work together since we both basically had businesses. I mean, pretty recently within the time of starting. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. Will you tell everybody where to find you? All our little mamas who are like, I want I want to learn to knit and find this. Yeah, like where do they find you?
Well, first, thanks so much for having me on the podcast. I was looking forward to this so much for a while. Like it's so fun to talk to you every time we do. You can find me on, you can still find me on Instagram, even though we're, trying to kind of even that out
There's
too.
nothing wrong with that.
I enjoy it. I just can't do too much of it because I am a person who gets kind of sucked into that stuff.
I get it.
But yes, you can still find me on Instagram. It's at the knitting mamas _ and my website is thenittingmamas.com, and my podcast is called Knit Your Stress Away, and you can find it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and everywhere else.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I hope you enjoyed getting to kind of get a behind the scenes of what Mom Business Academy is like through Nadine's perspective. Like I said, if you are interested, all you need to do is either go to the show notes of this episode, which we'll have linked below, or we'll have all kinds of things linked. Just look below. Wherever you're listening, look below. We will have the link so that you can set up an opportunity to learn more about Mom Business Academy and see if it's the right fit. Okay, everybody, we will see you next week. And remember, balance is absolutely possible. You can have balance. You can enjoy the bliss. It's all about finding the right things at the right time in the right places, and that's what we're doing. All right, see you next week.